First published in 1925, aka 100 years ago, The Great Gatsby is often hailed as the great American novel. That is, the in all caps. Defining the great American novel is kind of a nebulous thing. Is it a novel that greatly encapsulates what it means to be an American? Is it the one that best represents a slice of American life? Is it simply a great novel written by an American writer? Hard to say. But I read The Great Gatsby, and I do think that The Great Gatsby was, great. I'm going to spoil a lot of this because not that much happens, and also it's 100 years old, so deal with it. Nick Carraway, a wannabe bonds dealer, moves into a Long Island neighborhood known as West Egg, and he just happens to move into a bungalow that is directly next door to the extravagant domicile of Jay Gatsby. Gatsby is a somewhat elusive figure, but he's a rich guy who throws extravagant wild parties, and going to these extravagant wild parties is all the rage. There's a lot of wild speculation about how Gatsby got his money, and the combination of the speculation with his elusiveness is what makes him so exciting. Now, also living in New York City is Nick's cousin Daisy Buchanan, who lives across the bay with her husband Tom and their children. They are rich, and also Tom is a white supremacist. That really only shows up one time, but it's worth mentioning. Nick attends a couple of these parties and eventually ends up befriending Gatsby, through which we learn that about 5 years ago, Gatsby and Daisy had a relationship before Gatsby was deployed to World War I. But now, Jay Gatsby is back, he's found Daisy, and by Jove, old sport, nothing is going to stand in the way of him rekindling his love. Now, on the other side of this, Tom Buchanan, Daisy's husband, is having an affair with a lower-class woman named Myrtle Wilson. Tom keeps an apartment in a different neighborhood for his trysts and get-togethers with Myrtle and her friends. Myrtle's husband is George Wilson, a mechanic. Gatsby starts coming around Daisy with Nick, and they develop somewhat of a kind of overtly open affair, which leads to the big altercation of the book in the hotel between Tom and Daisy and Gatsby. Daisy never loved you, she only married you because I left. Daisy loves me, we have children together. Oh, I just don't know what to do. I loved him, but I love you too, and I'm so torn, I just want to go home. That's basically the extent of it. Now, on the way home from this altercation, Daisy, driving Gatsby's car because they rode there together separate from Tom and Nick, accidentally runs over Myrtle Wilson, who is standing in the street yelling at her husband. Tom, who is riding in a separate vehicle, sees the aftermath of the incident and stops and talks to George, and implies that the owner of the yellow vehicle is Jay Gatsby. The next day, George, distraught, shows up at Gatsby's house and guns him down in his pool before taking his own life. That's the plot. This is a very basic story, and it's not even that interesting unto itself. But I think this book is very important because of what it says about America, American values, and specifically life in the 20s. One of the basic messages of this book is the idea of the American dream. Anyone can become anything. Gatsby embodies this dream as he rises from being a poor farmhand to a rich guy. But Gatsby's dream is corrupted by materialism, and that leads to a series of events and choices that kind of get him killed. And in the most damning condemnation of this materialism, nobody shows up to Gatsby's funeral. We also see this somewhat as Nick tries to unsuccessfully build up a career and cultivate a relationship with his girlfriend Jordan Baker. But mostly we see a lot of Nick's disillusionment with the materialism and the excess of Gatsby's lifestyle. There's also a strong theme of class structure, as Gatsby represents the new money elite, as he is only recently wealthy and acquired his wealth through criminal means, versus the Buchanans, who have money through Tom's generational wealth. He was a football star at Yale, don't you know? And then we have the Wilsons, who are lower class. And all those different social influences and circles affect their choices. Love, or the illusion of love, is a central theme, as that is the motivator for the majority of the plot. But in reality, Gatsby's love of Daisy is an illusion because he really only loves the idea of Daisy. He loves the essence of her beauty, her fragility, her wealth, and what she means in terms of her representation of his past. Something else that stuck out to me is how Fitzgerald uses our main trifecta of women in the story, Daisy, Myrtle, and Jordan Baker, to examine the social class further, as well as the themes of moral decay and cynicism that are often attributed to the 20s or the Jazz Age. Daisy being representative of beauty, fragility, and apathy that is afforded her by her wealth. Myrtle clinging to the wealthy Tom as a way to escape the drudgery of her low-class life. And Jordan, Nick's girlfriend, who is a famous golfer, and whose general attitude of flightiness and insolence is representative of the cynicism of the era. She's cynical about gender roles. Honestly, good for her on that one. And throughout, she displays a general moral flexibility and cynicism about relationships and status and ethics and pretty much most things in general. She embodies the allure and emptiness of the Jazz Age. There's a lot more to this book, but these videos have a time limit, so I'm going to wrap it up here. The Great Gatsby gets 4 out of 5 hammers. If you're at all interested in great American novels, check it out.